Rahubat Yasar. My name is Sanan Ptah Tum, student teacher of the master teacher, Panabab Yanun, also known as His Excellency, Dr. Malachi Z. York. We will begin the shadow with the reading entitled, The Seed of Life. And it begins, once again, I come before you with pen in hand, aqal, mind, focused on hakak tal hakak at, actual facts. For these are the days of end times, not for all, only for the Sanath species whose time has come. Tabih al-tabah, natural nature, has her own rules, not laws, and her rules dictate how long a creature or plant is to exist in life's cycle called time. When a Sanath species or plant time comes, as in human genome, or G or Gi, which equals ki or earth, and nome, which equals a place, genome, chromosomes. So, to know how long is to know the cycles of the regrowth of cells by way of one's telomeres, which are the tips of the chromosomes of the repetitive DNA sequences which protect the chromosomes from deterioration. The Elohim who made the Adamite man shortened their telomere length and reduced the telomeres cycle to only 6,000 years, based on their etheric being of only 6 etheric being, weakening their enzyme, which is responsible for telomere length and maintenance. So their Salal race was set to have a premature Tamwat, death, as well as many health risks, diseases, viruses, and psychological stress, which makes them adrenaline junkies, defected hormones, or out of harmony with the rhythm. So they can't dance or sing, just spastic movements, yelling and screaming. So from their making, it was pre-programmed in their chromosomes that their Sanath species would fade away after 6,000 years, from 4,000 BC to 2000 AD. And they are now trying all kinds of ways to prolong their lifespan by again mixing with the stronger Yachas genes. And again, they have chosen the Roman gene, or Latin, now called Latino, Spanish. As you see, they are mixing them in. All around you in music, in cinema, and TV, you see them on the news up front. This is all part of the Caucasoids' attempt to extend their telomeres and prolong their Salal race. They did this before, when they left Europe's northeast and invaded Rome, then Spain and Portugal, mixed in, then sailed south to South America, mixed in with Mayan and with the Caribbeans. This gave them an extension of time. They, as a Salal race with regressive Yachas genes, must do this within every 400 years, or they fade away. That is, this time, they tried the East Indians, came up with Indo-Europeans, and were rejected this time by Mahatma Gandhi. They killed him. He rejected them in the year 1914. The Asians also rejected them and closed off China to them. They dared not try Afath Reye Ka'ahu, Africans. Our Yachas genes proved after the 1600-year slave trade to be much stronger. You see, from 1600, you add 400 years, you come to the year 2000 AD. The slave trader now sees in the West that once a child is born of mixed parents, he or she is called by Arabs who found out the same thing, mulattoes. Spanish or Portuguese from mulad, Arabic for birth. Our Yakhas genes are much too strong. The child comes out, no matter how light hue skin, yet with a black aqal mind, born with a ba'ah soul. That is why mixed children are never classed as white. They're called others or mulattoes. Look at most of the leaders of Nagaru, Negroids, in the West, always light-skinned radicals. So now, here again, they seek to remix with the Latino seed, as they did before, to make so many mixed Latinos who you can find with yellow, thin fur, blue, gray, green pupils in their ayantui, eyes. So they now are in that seed. They also see that once they give them a uniform or job with a title or position, they will act like them or for them, even abuse their own Spanish-speaking family. And amongst the darker Spanish-speaking people, they are abused by lighter. They call them negros, blacks, or morenos, darkies. So it's that time, once again, for the seed of Ka'anu, Canaanites, to mix in with another people, live in them as a host for 400 years. As you see on TV, all kinds of advertisements for body repair, skin, hair, bones, all kinds, all day. If you suffer from this or that, take this. Too much fur on your body, take and use this. Skin on feet, transforming back to paws. Nails too long, teeth too sharp, eyes too light, hump in your back, sun-growing breasts, gender confused, attracted too much to dogs, pigs, and apes. Well, it's all in your Yakhas genes. Need to eat more flesh, meat, blood meat. It's in your Yakhas genes. Want to start a new war to fight and kill others. Race cars, skate on ice with sticks to fight each other. Box, wrestle, ride wild horses or bulls. How about jumping out of planes or bungee jumping, swimming with sharks? Well, this self-destructiveness is programmed in your Yakhas genes. Mu'adamu, Adamites, and now that they rape others, it's in their Yakhas genes. So now, they must mix, or like the werewolf or vampire, transform back to Wahash, beast, right before your eyes. Look at this. Now look on TV. You will see this is true, of course. Nowadays, you have had much mixing, yet most who are pure will have their genetic ear shape, which is of a fetus. Now look at the original European ears. Used to hide behind farar or fur. Now look, you will see and so much more about them. They are transforming back right before your ayantui, eyes. Speaking of ayantui, eyes, few are blue and green. More are pearl silver to gray, like the canine husky. Have you ever noticed why they made the high heel shoe? You know, I can go on and on. 6 out of 10 are born with the coccyx cut at Taldad birth. Doctors know what to look for. Some born don't need the bahar or navel cut. It is already separated. Read Ezekiel chapter 16 verse 4, Proverbs chapter 3 verse 7 through 9. Note, navel and marrow of thy bone. I can see your face as you read and think to yourself, wow, this is so true. I know. It's all about their Shajar Shalil Ayanak, tree of life. Read Genesis chapter 5 verse 1. Genesis chapter 6 verse 9. Read Luke chapter 3 verse 23 through 38. That is their Natat, seed, their Salal, race, not our own. Their Shajar Shalil Anak, tree of life, being the Yachasyi, genetics of their Eve's mitochondrial DNA for 6,000 years to now, which is found in her backbone and rib cage from which the genome was uncovered. Even for our Salal race in Afaf Reye Kah, Africa, the oldest humanoids found in South Africa up the Nile to Kenya, Ethiopia, Sudan, the oldest to date. So the Shajar Shalil Anach, tree of life, is the backbone, spinal column connected to the rib bones. The Habar, Hebrew religion of Moses-ism, calls it the menorah. The 6 strands of their menorah is the 6,000 year time, and the 7th is the end of their time, from 2,000 to 3,000 millennium, 1,000 years. Read Revelation chapter 20 verse 2 and Revelation chapter 18 verse 2. Encaged from the year 2000 AD. He is encaged as a spirit, ghost, bound to earth. No place found for them in Patat, heaven. Read Revelation chapter 12 verse 8 through 12. Lost spirits, specters, all in their Yachas, genes. Also, those of Jesus-ism and Muhammad-ism all fall under this. Once they die, their spirit or ghost is trapped and caged for 1,000 years, haunting the West. Yet most Kasasu, Christians, and Muslimu, Muslims, don't know what the Shajar Shalil Anach, tree of life, in the enclosed garden of pleasure and delight really meant. It was once Adapa or Adam and Titi or Eve were rejoined together in Becca or Mecca of Arabia, Gan Eden in Hebrew. They were allowed by Enki or Yahweh and Ningish Zida, Nachash, the serpent man, to have sex. That was forbidden by Enlil or Baal and Nanar, Satan, because once they started to reproduce after their own kind, spoken of in Genesis chapter 5 verse 3, birthed a son, Satu or Seth, and begat a son in his own likeness after his own image. This was a humanoid, not in the image and likeness of the Elohim Anaku or Anunnaki, and Elohim Kamahu or Pleiadians. Read Genesis chapter 1 verse 26 to 27. Now the Mu'adamu, Adamites, have their own generations. Read Genesis chapter 5 verse 1. From Adamite to Sethite, and by Enlil's laws that was not wawid or good. Cain or Canaan was with his father Nanar, also called Sin or Kata, in the land of Nod. Read Genesis chapter 4 verse 7. The word sin is translated in Akkadian Sin, the name of Nanar, which means the bright one, Narar, which means fire, deity, god of Nawar or light, Khata, which is one who asks for the offering or sacrifice. Hebrew Strong's Concordance number 2403. Hebrew kata, sin, sinful, punishment for sin. He was the father of Cain, or Canaan, by Eve. Read Genesis chapter 4, verse 1, and I quote, "And Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord." End quote. Note, I have gotten, or begat, received a male man from the Hebrew Strong's number 3068. You have the word Jehovah or Yahweh, which means living one who exists, alive. So this Yahweh, Jehovah, Lord, was Nanar, God of light and fire, spoken of in Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12. Also Revelation chapter 22, verse 16. Also Ezekiel chapter 28, verses 14 through 17. The Allah, or God of light, the light of Patat Ut, or heavens. Lil, or Lil, equals heaven. Ki equals earth. This was Enlil's own son by Ninlil. He fathered Cain, Canaan, which means jealous one, by Eve, also called Hawa, which means mother of all living. So Nanar is their son of God. He, Enlil, sent down from Lil, or Patat, heaven, son of man, or mortal. You have the word in Hebrew, Bar Enos, which means son of Enos, which means forgetful one. Now, being taught as a Jesus, son of El, God, son Enos, a man, of a blessed mother, Mary, a physical father of the line of Enos. Read Luke chapter 3, verse 38. You see Enos. Read Luke chapter 3, verse 23. You see son of Joseph. So you have clear son of El. Jesus' own words. Read Matthew chapter 27, verse 46. And Jesus told them where El is, Matthew chapter 6, verse 9. Up in Patat, heaven, and he said his spirit is from above. Read John chapter 8, verse 23. And I quote, "And he said unto them, Ye are from beneath, I am from above. Ye are of this world, I am not of this world." End quote. And sent it back up. Read John chapter 19, verse 30. Read Matthew chapter 27, verse 50. Read Luke chapter 23, verse 46. So the part of him being an Emmanuel, Matthew chapter 1, verse 23, or son of El, God, and next son of man, or of the seed of Joseph of Enos. Clear? Read Matthew chapter 1, verse 23, and I quote, "Behold, the virgin shall be with child, and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel," which being interpreted is God with us. End quote. So again, it's all about the tree of life, Yachas, genes. Theirs or ours still, Yachas, genes. Way back, understanding Habar, Hebrew names, taken from the Chaldean of Akkadian, Akkad, spoken of in Genesis chapter 10, and Sumerian. The story starts for the white Salal race, with Adapa, Adam, being moved from Sudan, or Hebrew Strong's number 7704, Sada, which means outer field, Afaf Reye Kah, Africa, outside of Arabia. Read Genesis chapter 2, verse 8, as you see Genesis chapter 2, verses 10 through 15 as well. So, his name changed to Cadman, which means eastward, from Zakar, Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. Hebrew Strong's number 2145, the word or name Zakar, which means he who remembers his making and birth story, his story. Read Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, and I quote, "So God created man, Zakar, in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them," end quote. So Adapa, the most learnt men, to Zakar, to Cadman, to Adamu, as they moved him. And once he was reunited with Titi or Nikebal, to Hawa, to Eve, once they had sex, this meant she, or the seed of the woman spoken of in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, now was the family tree, the tree of life, on their own. Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, and I quote, "And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel," end quote. Once Enlil found out, Genesis chapter 3, verse 8, and then his son, Nanar, and the Ikiki, or cherubim, saw him dressed like them, Genesis chapter 3, verse 22. They knew he had his own will or choice, as well as he knew the other tree of those of the Dingir, or seraphim. He knew Wawid, good, from Dawu, evil beings. Genesis chapter 3, verse 8, Genesis chapter 3, verse 22. So the tree is Hebrew Strong's Concordance number 6086, Eats, tree, wood, timber, the backbone. I know I repeat myself. It comes with age. By the time they give it to me and I transcribe on paper, I forget where I was. So to make sure I repeat myself, I want you to really get this. You see, only truth, facts, confirmations can allow you to free yourself. Just as the tree of knowledge of Wawid, good, and Dawu, evil, you must know this devil and its lies called blind faith, religions of Abraham. And that completes the reading. Rahubat Yasar. 1. The extraterrestrials are giving us this information about who is who, so that it will be clearly shown that no one could have given us this information about genetic markers and this race and that race. Natural nature versus unnatural nature. If I say to you, I want to inspire you, what do you think that means? It means I want to put a spirit in you. A spirit, believe. A spirit, believe it or not, is not natural nature. Think of it this way. The Mukasu are not natural nature, although they are created from nature. A spirit is inside something of natural nature, yet it is not of natural nature. Spirits also cannot cross over salt water. It has something to do with the iodine. Now you have what is called pure spirit, which would include a Holy Spirit and unholy spirit. Yet they do not want to admit that because they do not know the difference when a possession is taking place. 2. Your succubi and incubi are grays. The Ikiki were assigned to Earth as their watch station. That is what that name means. They violated the first rule and came down to Earth and had sex. Some beings live in the waters, some in the air, some under the earth, as it says for the Adamites not to make any images of anything under the water, in the heavens or in the earth. Exodus chapter 20, verse 4. And I quote, "Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven images or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth." 3. The Greys were given a tri-abode pass. We are dealing with Grey groups from Riga, Al-Nitak, etc. Groups of Greys were about to make hybrid children because they don't feel. That is why they are the succubi and incubi, because they arouse people in their sleep to extract body fluids such as adrenaline, DNA from semen and ovaries to create hybrids to live here among people as well. 4. The Sans people are the Patahites of Botswana, and you have the Kalahari Bushmen who are of Zimbabwe. These people have all the genetic markers that you see as traits in the human race. They have the nappy hair of the Negroids, the slanted eyes of the Asians, the 3 marks in the brow of the Aborigines, and the chin dimple of the Indians. The first race was Negroids, who have 9 species and seats. The next race is the Aborigines and the Dravidians, who have 8, and the Asians have 7 species. The Kakasu women have 6. The Kakasu men have 5. There is another subspecies that has 4, yet I will not mention that now. The more number of spiritual seats, the less spiritual. The lesser number of spiritual seats, the more spiritual. 5. We are now in a degraded state. So how did we get to this degraded point? Well, during slavery, a new language was created called Kiswahili, which is a combination of Arabic and Bantu, used to control the slaves during the slave trade. Many converted from their natural way or natural nature and converted to monotheistic religions such as Islam. Even in their books called the Quran, it says to go back when in doubt. Going back, as mentioned in Quran chapter 10 verse 94, and I quote, "In the first chapter revealed that was rearranged as chapter 96, known as Al-Alaq, the clot." In 610 AD, Muhammad was told to read in the name of his Rab, Ikra Rabbika. Read in the name of your sustainer, not recite as many mistranslations read. Who is the only person taught throughout the Quran? Jesus. Who is the only female mentioned by name with a chapter named after her? Mary, which is the 19th chapter of the Quran. What did Jesus' disciples call him? Rabboni, which in the Hebrew language, even through the books of the New Testament, were translated in the Greek. Ask the rabbis, they know. It is said the angel Gabriel came to Muhammad on the 19th night of power to receive this information, or the 19th hour out of the 24 hours in a day. Also, it ties into the 24,000-year cycle and symbolizes the beginning of the new cycle of 6,000 years. 6. The chapter of the Quran called Al-Asr, which means the extraction, speaks about the time when man, or the Enocytes, is at a loss. This Asr is referring to the Natar Asar, who was dismembered by his brother Setach, or Set, and his essence had to be extracted by Ashtat, Isis, in order to produce the son Harar, Horus, who was the actual or real Jesus. So we start beginning with Egypt, with the temple of Ahmun, with pictures or hieroglyphics. What does the Nathar or overseer look like? He is jet black. 7. Where was this Jesus born? In the temple of Hathor, in Mehmet, Egypt. The house of birth is called Mamasin. Where did it say for his son to come out of Egypt? In Hosea chapter 11 verse 1. Also read Matthew chapter 2 verse 15. And I quote, I call my son out of Egypt. End quote. Now in Genesis chapter 49 verse 10, it says, the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be. End quote. It speaks about a scepter being passed. This occurred with Bilal and Muhammad. This scepter or staff was the same that Moses had, that he received from where? Egypt. 8. Lucifer is that light that caused chaos. Hebrew Strong's number 1966. For Halal, the sun, Hebrew Strong's Concordance number 1966. For Halal is the same year, 1966, that the Church of Satan became a church by Ronald Wilson Reagan, which also has 6 letters each, 666. Look at Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12. And I quote, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? End quote. Then look at Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 14. Thou art the anointed cherub that covereth, and I have set thee so. Thou wast upon the holy mountain of God. Thou hast walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. End quote. That speaks about the anointed cherub. And in Revelation chapter 22 verse 16, it mentions the son of dawn or morning. Revelation chapter 22 verse 16 in part, I am the root and offspring of David and the bright and morning star. End quote. They are still pushing the false Christ. Yet do not be deceived. They deceived by putting lies in the mouth of prophets. 9. The Tanakh includes T for the Torah, N for Nabiim or prophets, the book of the prophets, and or KH for the scripture. The book of Revelation is the Evangel or Injil, and is the only, and the Injil. 10. So busy trying to keep us from becoming rich that they let the most radical minds become rich. Rappers who already had their own minds because they were outspoken. Kanye West, rich and outspoken. Queen Latifah, Snoop Dogg, etc. 11. Hormone males are born that way, and homosexuals are usually just want pleasure. Many men who are considered gay are just that because they may be not very attractive or considered ugly and can't approach women or lack the confidence to do so. That is a way to obtain that type of pleasure, attention, or stimulation. So they convert to a lifestyle where they can get it. Different countries approach what is called homosexuality different ways. In Trinidad, they are called Batimen, and it is just that. However, no one better abuse them like what is done over here in America, where they are beat up and even killed for being different. 12. What are the 5 elements of life to this planet? Hydrogen, helium, carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen. You have 2 gases on one side and a substance and 2 gases on the other side. Carbon is the base, and women give life and form the body. Another interesting point is if you add up the atomic weights of these elements, you reach 24. Again, this is the number that ties into this planet from Project 24 to 24,000 year cycle, 4 cycles of 6,000 years, to the 24 to 24,000 genomes, etc. 13. Yanun is the 19th seat. If you look at the position coinciding with the 24 hours, it lines up with the portal or gate. Yanun completed his mission as of the year 2000 by bringing the knowledge of the heavens and the earth. Panabab Yanun. Women must pick it up now. Right, as our carriers of the mitochondrial DNA. We are the timekeepers and must reset history by keeping our genes pure. We begin with Ahmun Nubi Re'ach Ptah, from Atum to Ahmun. We have completed an equinox and they have become equal. We have from 2030, or the year 2030, to the year 2060. And by that time, the Adamite race will be completely gone. What did Panabab Yanun say would happen to them? That they would fade away. 14. This is a genetic evacuation to eliminate. That is why there is so many gray sightings and so many abductions. They are going into the genes to see how much Pleiadian is in your genes. For example, a person is abducted, and then depending on the genes determines the way the genes could possibly be getting weaker or stronger. If 2 dark-skinned people have a child lighter than themselves, then obviously the genes are weaker in that child. Now, that is just one child. It is made clear by the more children you have. The last child born can give you an idea of which way your genes are going. 15. They are not pushing blonde hair and blue eyes. They are pushing red hair and green eyes. You see, there are 2 races, the red, the Adamites, and the whites, the Canaanites. Abraham, a red, didn't want his son to have a white wife. So he said, don't take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. Although Rebekah was fair, as her father was Laban, and she gave birth to Esau, red, covered with red fur, and Jacob, who was fair. Now Abraham's sister and wife, Sarah, when taken to Egypt and taken by Pharaoh as a wife, the woman prepared her and put her to sleep and tied her tubes. They did not want a foreign seed. Yet once she returned to Abraham, they were visited by the Lord on the plain of Mamre, mentioned in Genesis chapter 18. She was told she would bear a son. They were being monitored by these beings who wanted this pale seed, and untied her tubes and told her she would have a son in a year. So you have different beings breeding with Adamites for different reasons. The 2 brothers and the conflict continues today. One side is for the pale Adamite race and the other is for the red. One says, sacrifice your son to me, Genesis chapter 22, verse 2, and I quote, and he said, take now thy son, thine only son, Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of, end quote. The other says, no sacrifice. Sacrifice this ram instead. Genesis chapter 22, verse 13. And I quote, and Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering instead of his son. End quote. Again, these are not the same God. Yahweh, they are two different ones. 16. There was a lot of mixing when the Israelites went into Egypt. They were 60 souls when they went in, and it was 60,000 when they came out. These were led in the wilderness and protected by a craft referred to in the Bible as the pillar in the cloud by day and night. Their gods. Now these Hebrew or Israelites lived there for 430 years. It only takes 4 generations for a change to occur in the genes. So when they came out, they were Egyptian mixed. And being they have a recessive gene, they were no longer white. We must perfect our genes to make it out of here. 17. Tammuz is who met Moses on the mount, and he was allowed to see his back. Exodus chapter 33, verse 18 and 23. And I quote, and he said, I beseech thee, show me thy glory. Verse 23, and I will take away mine hand, and thou shalt see my back parts, but my face shall not be seen. End quote. Moses was not allowed in the promised land because he had been exposed to the radiation from the craft and thus poison. He lived to be 120 and nearing death. Read Deuteronomy chapter 31 verse 2 and verse 14. And I quote, and he said unto them, I am 120 years old this day. I can no more go out and come in. Also the Lord hath said unto me, thou shalt not go over this Jordan. Then verse 14. And the Lord said unto Moses, behold, thy days approach that thou must die. Call Joshua and present yourselves in the tabernacle of the congregation, that I may give him a charge. And Moses and Joshua went and presented themselves in the tabernacle of the congregation. Deuteronomy chapter 34 verse 7. And Moses was 120 years old when he died. His eye was not dim, nor his natural force abated. Exodus chapter 24 verse 16. And the sight of the glory of the Lord was like devouring fire on the top of the mount in the eyes of the children of Israel. Exodus chapter 24 verse 18. And Moses went into the midst of the cloud and gat him up into the mount. And Moses was in the mount 40 days and 40 nights. End quote. That's why the priests wore the breastplate and the Urim and Thummim and were protected. It is after this chapter that the children of Israel were instructed in how to build the Ark of the Covenant, which was designed to allow the children of Israel to communicate with the children of Israel. The people in the wilderness were tired of waiting for Moses to return and turn back. Read Exodus chapter 24 verse 17. And the sight of the glory of the Lord was like devouring fire on the top of the mount in the eyes of the children of Israel. End quote. Worshipping what they were in Egypt, like Nasat, wife of Enki, the bovine, in the form of a golden calf. Exodus chapter 32 verse 8. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them, They have made them a molten calf, and have worshipped it, and have sacrificed thereunto, and said, These be thy gods, O Israel, which have brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. Moses returns and is upset by what they had done and dropped the tablets. Read Exodus chapter 32, verse 19. And it came to pass, as soon as he came nigh unto the camp, that he saw the calf and the dancing, and Moses' anger waxed hot, and he cast the tablets out of his hand and brake them beneath the mount. End quote. Exodus chapter 34, verse 1. And the Lord said unto Moses, How the 2 tablets of stone like unto the first, and I will write upon these tablets the words that were in the first tablets, which thou breakest. End quote. Exodus chapter 24, verse 12. And the Lord said unto Moses, Come up to me into the mount, and be there, and I will give thee tablets of stone, and a law and commandments which I have written, that thou mayest teach them. End quote. Me stones, and they explode as they were discs. The gods were made and wanted blood, so all those who worshipped were killed. And Moses said the Levite priests too, because they were responsible for the people. Yet everyone else was plagued. And that concludes the updates. Robert.
Also, the question is, when you talked about Moses did not make it into the promised land due to the fact that he was poisoned or cursed by the by the craft for radiation, could you speak a little bit more and give me a little bit more enlightenment based on that?
So that portion coming from their Bible was dealing with the radiation. He was exposed to radiation, which caused his sickness, or that poisoning, which sped up his death, according to their Bible, that story. And the reason why we say it as that is because when teaching those who may still be entrapped in the spell of religion, in order to heal them, we have to give them some of that same poison book that poison their system. So a lot of times when you have a snake bite, you need to take some of that poison as a curative, right? So when we deal with these poison books, not just the Bible, as well as the Quran, etc., these are all religions that were forced upon us, right? We had a natural way of living. These things invaded Africa, right? So when we deal with that story of Moses, it's just that. It's a story.
Okay.
Right? So Moses was a fictitious biblical character. Now, if you say that to one who may be entrapped in that school of religion, we have to walk the walk and talk the talk. That's why Pandabab Yanun, he walked us through various schools of religion. One being Christism. Right? If you go back to the Egyptian Church of Christ, or Egyptian Church of Christ, that was showing you the root of Christ being Christ, because the word Christ actually comes from ancient Egypt. So it's taking you back home. But in order to bring you back home, we've been so far bitten by this poisonous snake that we have a lot of this poison through these isms of religion surging through our being. So we have to use some of this poison to extract what's in them. Almost like if you ever see someone get bit by a snake bite and it gets very dark and they'll puncture a little hole to let some of that poison ooze out. Right. It's the same type formula that's utilized. But it was very important for us to go through those schools of isms of religion because we were sick. And as we heal by the healer, Pandabab Yanun, it is our job and our duty to assist others who have been bitten and suffer from this poison. We have to extract it, and we have the tools utilized. That's why you notice a lot of biblical quotes, because the spell still exists. Now you may be on a more advanced level, but there's still other sick people out. And it's very egotistical to just feel like me as a female or me as a male, well, I know all that. But what about your brothers and your sisters out here who don't? Are there more of us or more of them?
Sure.
And if it's more of them, it requires the few of us to reach more of them. So it's like a domino effect. Each one teach one. So it's very important that we master these schools and not get booked. I know sometimes you hear the same biblical quotes about more Bible. How are we going back? Because this is the poison that has poisoned our people, and we still have a job to do. A lot of people still caught up in this spell of religion. It's our duty to break that, but we have to know it so we can walk them through these scriptures. As Panabab Yanun, His Excellency, Dr. Malachi Z.K. York has done with us. We have to do the same.
Well, okay, by me studying that piece out of the scriptures dealing with Moses having the radiant, attaining the radiant light, I actually looked at that as them attaining the radiant light as that of the sun disk, being birthed as in the 76 trillion, the sun being birthed inside of him, the microscopic universe of the 76 trillion years, but also that of radiant light referring to being able to grow inside of himself, or him walking through the scale of Ma'at and being able to attain paradise. But I did not know that piece there was connected to it. That's why he did not make it into the promised land. So by me studying that piece and looking at that, talking about the radiant light, that form of light, as I've been studying with some of the other brothers, that type of light could actually be positive light, or also it can be of a form of
just to chime in relation to the update that was just read, that was radiation.
Okay, so
dealing with radiation, that's what caused his death. Anytime you're exposed to radiation, it affects the genes, etc., to speed up death. Like when you have nuclear fallout. This is dealing with a craft, which is something else that they try to shun away from in the scriptures. The existence of crafts, or UFOs, which some call, which is all throughout their scriptures. But this was speaking of being exposed to radiation from a craft. Not rays of light, but radiation.
All right. When you talk about the radiation as in of craft, could that mean of him dealing on the ether realm?
No, that's not dealing with ether. It's dealing with, because a lot of times,
I might be saying it wrong. Pardon me.
Gotcha.
I might be saying it wrong, but that radiation on that type of realm,
metaphysical.
The metaphysical realm, and him being on that type of level, he actually died. He actually died, meaning that like his antennas was actually down, or he actually died, and then he died from that form of radiation, that him being on that form of level. I might not be saying it,
but basically, without interpreting, that's the importance of breaking the spell. One thing that Panabab Yanun always recommended would be to go into the language. Now, we could interpret from scripture, from what we read in English, but Panabab Yanun has always taught us about the Hebrew Strong's Concordance numbers. That's why throughout the Egyptian Church of Karas days, he recommended we have the keyword study Bible. So when you go to the back, you have your Strong's Concordance in Greek, in Hebrew, Chaldean, etc. So when we read radiation through a concordance dictionary, you can see exactly what it says. So we don't have to conjecture to me it means this and that. Everybody can do that, because each of us can see something different and have a different part from English. But to get rid of the opinions, etc., it's a blessing by way of Panabab Yanun to be able to go to the root of the language,
yes,
right, and say, oh, no, that's not what it means. So we can now see exactly what this word said in Hebrew. Well, what's the Hebrew word for radiation? What's this? What's that? We can delve into it that way, and that gets rid of the opinions, and it's almost like poetry, because when you look at Shakespeare, you may be able to interpret Shakespeare and see it from one aspect, And that's what happens in their Bible. You're dealing with Shakespearean language. Thee, thou, art. That's his language.
Yes.
But you get rid of that by going into the language from which that was translated from, which goes again to what Panda Babyanun said. Breaking the spell is the spell by way of these words. So the further we go back, right, from English, we go back to our original language, wu-nuwaupu. And one thing that His Excellency Dr. Malachi Z.K. York has said was that when we learn wu-nuwaupu, simultaneously we also learn Aramaic, Arabic, Greece, Amharic, etc. We learn all these languages by learning wu-nuwaupu. That's an aspect that a lot of us may look over. But a lot of people ask about, oh, why this changed, why this changed. You're learning 5 or 6 different languages that you never even knew.
Sure indeed.
So dealing with wu-nuwaupu opens that door.
I just wanted to open the piece back up one more time. And due to the fact that if he died from that radiation, due to the fact that he died in that radiation, while the process was actually being taken on that metaphorical realm, couldn't something of a negative instead of a positive, where of a negative came in to actually kill that being, or to implant him or implant the being with something to be able to hold the being down, or to be able to just, not allowing the being to be able to further its process for its elevation, for it to be able to expand. When I'm talking about the being itself, I'm talking about the being of the mind of that person, or that being of that person.
What, based on what was mentioned, is dealing with?
Yeah, when you're talking about the radiation, you're talking about radiation. That radiation could actually mean like the negative. Something negative, or something being implanted of, you have positive force and negative. You know what I'm saying? You have, consists of positive and negative. So something of a negative can actually come and be implanted in that radiation to actually kill the being, or for it to die. For Moses to die, for his mind and his elevation for him to be able to attain the light being. So he actually dies on that metaphorical realm. So he's just only becoming conscious now, instead of him to attaining the superconscious or the magnetic conscious.
And to keep it simple, so everybody have understanding.
Yes.
It basically comes down to radiation and the effects of radiation.
All right.
He died at 120 according to that, due to radiation. So the study will come in with radiation. Okay, what is radiation? What does it do to the body? What does it do to the genes, etc.? Okay. So from a scientific level, the subject would start with radiation and doing research on radiation. Now we know radiation is used, as a therapy for certain cancers, etc. But there's a negative side effect as well. It's a good aspect of destroying it, and there's a negative aspect as well. But it comes down to radiation, and due to the exposing of radiation, according to that biblical story, ultimately led to his death. True.
First of all, we have to humble ourselves and really listen with the open mind, and release our ego and observe what is being said, because it was explained with a very clear understanding of what the brother was trying to say. If you're coming from a different school of thought, then you can't mix them. You just have to listen and try and understand with the open mind of what is being said, because it was very clear what the brother has said. And I like to commend you young teachers today here in wu-nuwaupu at the parade. Y'all doing a good job. Y'all doing a very good job.
Praise Sanan Ptah Tum.
Well, brothers like and we left off years ago, going back to 79 and 69, and I'm glad to see that y'all are very patient. Y'all are very patient. Y'all are more patient than we were as Ansars in explaining yourselves, and keep up the good work and try and bring more people out. And, continue to humble yourself and try and get the message across. Because it's very clear in what you're saying. But you have people that come from different schools of thoughts that try and subconsciously combat what is being said, when all you have to do is just listen and think about it. That's all we have to do, because it's very simple. And you were very on point when you say a lot of this going back into the Bible is old knowledge to a lot of people here, but you have to do it, you have to do it to go back and reach those who isn't up on our level. This is why we go back to the Bible and the Quran and the Torah and things of this nature. So keep up the good work and continue to do what you're doing.
Thank you. Good seeing you, Command. Glad to see you out. Everything working well. Talk to
Towhat. Okay. I had a few questions about number 3, and I think it popped up again at number 14, the update about the grays.
number 3 and 14.
Yeah, you said in 3
The grays.
how the grays, yes, they manipulate individuals, humans, in their sleep, and or try to arouse them, or whatever the comment was. But it, pardon? Incubus, right? Incubus and succubus, Towhat, and that the purpose was to create a hybrid, right? Is that a hybrid of human and them?
Sure.
Okay.
Human and them, because a lot of species, you're dealing with over 70 species of grays that exist. Some of them, majority of them, don't have the ability to reproduce as we do. Not even intake of food. A lot of them have to absorb nutrition through their skin, which we know is the largest organ in the body, but they usually submerge themselves in huge vats, which have body parts along with peroxide, right? Cinnamon is a smell that's often sensed, when they're nearby. Some say it's a cinnamony type smell. But when you deal with grays, first and foremost, it's very important to bring it to self, because when in the womb of our mother, that's one of the stages that we go through. If you look at a fetus, as Panababyanun has depicted in many scrolls, etc., you'll see that we had big heads, right? We had big black eyes, because our pupils were dilated, which means you have a big black eye, right? Because we're in the darkness of our mother's womb. We had a little slit for mouth, little tiny little ears, right? And our skin was gray. Because, when we take baths, especially when we're little, as Panababyanun said, you want to stay until you get nice and a little wrinkly. Your hands get wrinkled, they get all soft, right? That buoyancy comes in, your reptilian, aquatic, amphibious nature starts to manifest. And sometimes we get scared, like, oh, my hands look funny. And children will look at it and marvel at it. Oh, wow, look at this. Oh, look, yeah. But that's a part of our nature. So now we just took a bath, or a child took a bath for, say, 10, 15 minutes, and look what happens. Now imagine being in the womb, as we were, for 9 months. So we were gray. So that was us. And it will be us if things aren't corrected. But it was already you. Because a lot of times they just take grays out to the skies, but they never bring it right to earth, right in our mother's womb. We were grays. They cannot deny that. Right now we can go, and look in the womb for those who may be pregnant, and you'll see that. So it's very important to bring it down to earth and show, well, that's you. That was you. You look exactly like that. And now from a future aspect, it can lead back up to that due to the pollution that's taking place. You don't want to breathe all this toxic air. So by nature, your nostrils going to close up. Your nose is going to get smaller. Due to the radiation, your head is going to deform. It's going to change things on you. And if a flood comes and you were submerged back underwater, we're going to turn back gray again. And when the lights go out, you're going to have nothing but black eyes because your pupils are going to dilate. And then you have to learn how to take the sun from the inside out, or see from the inside out. Seeing from the inside out would be through your solar plexus, your center sun. That's why a lot of times when you turn the light out at night and it's pitch black, but damn, I can't see nothing. Where am I going? I can't see nothing. Wait a little while, and then you'll see from your inner light, your solar plex. So you're actually seeing from the inside out, and then you can see in the room. Test it out tonight. Turn the light back. I can't see nothing. Wait for a few minutes, and then you'll be able to see. So we can see in the dark, because that's part of our nature. But it's very important to bring it back to earth and to us, because a lot of times when they, speaking of the Kakasu, they always make grays seem like these spooky in the midst, but that's one aspect of our nature that we went through at a certain gestational state.
So that also reminds me, I don't remember what update, but I think it was mentioned, or maybe this is just my thought, that we also might have the ability to breathe longer, or to be underwater longer without breathing if you practice. The same if you practice, vocals or what have you, the longer you practice inhaling and holding it, the longer you'll be able to, which ultimately the end of that is just to be able to control your breathing totally to the point of non-suffocation, which is the same thing as being underwater. Okay.
So,
that's just me. Yeah.
And what's interesting, Panabab Yanun, he brought up a very good point. He said, we still breathe water. He said, because the air that we breathe is fine mist. It's water droplets that we still breathe. So we're actually still in an aquatic environment. It's just that they are so attracted to only dealing with the mammalian side that they try to shun us away from the reptilian or amphibious side, our water side. But it's a fact, we still breathe water today. And one of the movies that Panabab Yanun told us to watch was the movie Abyss. Because in that movie Abyss, there's a certain part in the movie where, the man, he had to go deep in the water. But they filled his mask up with a fluid which was very similar to amniotic fluid. And they said it's going to be just like breathing again. You're going to panic for a while. And then when I watched, he was panicking and it was holding him. Then he said, relax. Then he eventually, and he started breathing again using his gills. But we still breathe water today, just in fine mist.
Tua. And just Tauhat, that went further. Still on the grays, because that came up a few times this week as well. Is this activity related in any way to human cloning in any way?
Cloning, yes. Well, when you deal with cloning, it's something that they've been doing. So when it mentions them creating hybrid, they absolutely deal with cloning. But cloning is on a more minute level. They're more so like, their scientists even here today are now delving into stem cells. And with stem cells, they're curing blindness, they're curing paralysis, almost everything. And the majority, they get the richest stem cells from black babies. So that's why they promote obtaining black fetuses more so than any other ones. But through stem cells, they're trying to extract stem cells from the inner portion of the nose, etc. But it's richest in children. But stem cell research is way higher than cloning, because with cloning, you basically replicate another body, and say they create a clone of you, and say you got a bad kidney, and they create a clone. They know that your body won't reject your clone's kidney because it's from you. So they take the kidney from the clone and put it in you. That's on a minute level. The technology is to the state now where through stem cell research, they can just take stem cells and inject it into your bad kidney, and it'll repair your kidney. Same thing with a bad heart. If you're paralyzed, if you're blind, they actually did an experiment with a species of monkey, right, in which they cure blindness within these monkeys by using stem cells. So now they use stem cells to cure blindness, paralysis, etc. So it's at the stage of stem cells. That's where they put the focus on.
But we don't want that. I mean, as far as them cloning, that's a negative, because they're not even asking for permission, really. They're just taking the mother's, stuff while she doesn't even know it, from what I understand.
Well, that came from us as well, because when you go into ancient Egypt, when they went into the tomb of Khonsu, if I recall correctly. Panababiano mentioned this on one of the Egyptian Church of Qur'an CDs. He said they didn't know nothing about stem cells until they went into the tomb of Khonsu, and once they did that, they found out about stem cell research. But they won't tell that story to us. But cloning takes you back to ancient Egypt. The whole point of us mummifying was to preserve cells, because our ancestors knew that today would come where scientists would start recloning. And when we speak about raising from the dead, that's how they are raising from the dead. Like Japan was one of the few countries that wanted to actually clone Tutankhamun, or what they call King Tut. Japan was going to do it, and at the last second, they pulled it. The Picasso stopped them from doing it, because they would saw and know exactly who and what he was and what he looked like, a Nagato. But they were going to clone King Tut. Japan was going to clone him back, because they had the body, all they needed, they preserved cells. When you research mummification, which was invented by Anpu, or Anubis, right, the canine, it was to preserve cells. The wrapping, the resins that was used, the different gold, the sarcophagus, the neb-ankh, it was all done to preserve cells, because they knew scientists would regain the technology that they had in the past and would be able to just clone them back to life. And they're doing it. Japan was just about to do it, and then they pulled the plug. So now what are they doing with King Tut's tomb? If you know now, they've been taking pictures of his tomb, and now they say they found 2 new rooms. And they said behind these rooms, they've discovered metals and flesh. So they think that it may be Nefertiti. That's their guess. They said, we think this may be Nefertiti, which would be the greatest Egyptian discovery since 1922, when they raided King Tut's tomb and broke the seal and got cursed, and the whole blackout happened in Cairo, Egypt, and all of them died from mysterious insect bites, and their dogs dying simultaneously to them dying. All this stuff was happening. Everybody who touched it, the Titanic sank, everything dealing with our ancestors, because they broke certain seals. And they forget that those same seals exist today, because we are their DNA. And they imprison our pharaoh. And the curse, is in full effect.
So last question, Tahat, was if they're able to do all of that without, in our sleep, what would be the purpose of them taking or just kidnapping people altogether in the section where you're talking about, people go missing. They just abduct altogether. What's their purpose if they can already just manipulate you while you're sleeping? Why do they need you?
Because they want that DNA. As I mentioned, it said to breed hybrid children, because they lack certain things, such as some of them lack reproductive organs, etc. So they want to have that capacity to reproduce, and most importantly, they want to feel. Like emotions is very strange to them, so they want to feel. Like as we experience love and different emotions or energy emotion, that's something that they would like, which some of them will gain once certain things are complete. That's one thing that the Natharu will allow them to have, a species, in particular the Romardians, which was created by our descendants, those who descended down here. They will be given that gift of emotions. That's why when the crafts come and you ask questions, or those who make it, or ask questions, you can't lie to a gray because they have no emotion. So you can't cry to a gray. Like with another person has emotion, you can cry, but please, I was going to change, I was going to do this, come on, just let me on, man, please. All right, come on. But with a gray, you get none of that. So there's no sympathy, your cries mean nothing. That's why they're sent here to do a certain part of the lift. They're sent in particular. But after it's completed, they will be gifted with emotions, but they don't have it. So your cries, our cries, means nothing. You can't cry. You can't hustle them.
Okay. Sorry.
Ta-da. Any other questions before we conclude the shadow?
Are that the grays are the only species that has, that don't have emotion? Are the other beings have emotions?
Some, yes.
Okay. Habitat.
Death form. Any other questions? Going once, going twice, thrice. Yasar, everyone travel safe. Always a blessing. All thanks to Panda Bab Yanun. Till next time. Wadu.